You think you're getting a deal at Primark? Think again. The bargain prices you're getting come with a far higher cost than you realize. Imagine this. You walk into Primark, eyes wide at the sea of clothes, with prices that feel like they're practically giving them away. $5 for a t-shirt, $10 for jeans, and $12 for that trendy jacket that looks like it should cost double. It's like a dream come true for anyone who loves fashion, but doesn't want to spend a fortune. But here's the twist. That $7 sweater, the real cost is far higher than what you see on the price tag. You're not just paying for the fabric and the stitching. You're paying for human rights abuses, environmental damage, and a broken system built on cheap labor and massive waste. In the next few minutes, I'll expose how Primark is making you believe you're getting the best deal of your life, while behind the scenes, it's actually a dangerous game of exploitation. And by the time you watch this, you may just think twice before stepping foot into their store again. The truth behind the bargain prices. Why unbelievably cheap clothes are costing more than you think. Let's talk about the price tag, that little number that lures you in every time you shop at Primark. On the surface, it seems impossible to resist. You can get an entire wardrobe refresh for a fraction of what you'd spend at other stores. But how can Primark possibly sell clothes that cheap? The real story behind these prices isn't magic or clever marketing. It's about cheap labor and dangerous practices that make those low prices a sham. Primark's pricing strategy relies on one thing: mass production in low-wage countries, where workers are paid next to nothing for their labor. If you've ever wondered how a $7 t-shirt can exist, here's how. It's made by workers earning just a few dollars a day, sometimes in unsafe, sweatshop-like conditions. How low can these wages go? In places like Bangladesh and Cambodia, where Primark outsources much of its manufacturing, workers earn as little as $2 to $3 a day. That's less than the cost of a cup of coffee in many countries. And while you're scoring a bargain on a trendy outfit, the people who made it can barely afford to feed themselves. But don't think it's all about wages. These workers are often forced into long hours, dangerous machinery, and poor working conditions. The factories are overcrowded, poorly ventilated, and safety regulations are often ignored. And if that weren't enough, workers have no job security and zero access to healthcare. If something goes wrong, there's no fallback. And all this injustice happens just so you can grab a bargain. The reality of low wages, terrible conditions, and abuse in the supply chain is what makes these prices possible. It's a business model that sacrifices workers in favor of keeping prices artificially low, and we all pay the price for it, not just with our money, but also with our conscience. But it doesn't stop there. While Primark's prices might make your wallet feel good, there's another hidden cost: the environmental toll of these ultra-low prices. Let's break down the ecological cost of fast fashion. The environmental cost of fast fashion. Why cheap clothes are a steep price for the planet. Primark's prices don't just come at a human cost. They also carry a heavy environmental price tag. Here's something you might not know. The fast fashion industry is one of the biggest polluters in the world. And Primark? Well, they're one of the top offenders. You might be thinking, but how does a cheap t-shirt really hurt the planet? Well, let me tell you, the production of those cheap clothes is an environmental nightmare. The entire fast fashion model is designed for constant turnover, meaning clothes are made at breakneck speed, sold quickly, and thrown away just as fast. The result? Massive textile waste and increased carbon footprints that are causing lasting damage to the planet. Primark churns out millions of low-cost items every year. Think of those polyester t-shirts, cheap jeans, and synthetic fibers that flood their shelves. While these clothes might look good in the store, the process of making them is extremely wasteful. The synthetic fibers they use, like polyester, are petroleum-based and don't biodegrade, meaning they end up in landfills for hundreds of years after you toss them out. And it's not just the waste. The dyeing process that Primark uses for their fabrics is also toxic. The chemicals involved in dyeing clothes are dumped into rivers, polluting waterways and destroying ecosystems. The reality is that for every $7 t-shirt you buy, the environment pays the price with poisoned rivers, endless waste, and a skyrocketing carbon footprint. Did you know that the fashion industry is responsible for 10% of global carbon emissions? That's more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. Fast fashion, and yes, Primark is one of the biggest culprits, is one of the leading causes of environmental degradation. And every time we buy cheap clothes without thinking about their impact, we're contributing to that problem. Primark's unsustainable production model creates a cycle of overproduction and overconsumption, where clothes are manufactured at an unsustainable rate and then discarded without a second thought. It's a vicious cycle, and every time you buy another cheap item, you're feeding into it. Lack of transparency, what they don't want you to know. So far, we've talked about how Primark cuts corners with cheap labor and environmental damage to bring you those incredibly low prices. But there's a glaring issue that few people talk about: the absolute lack of transparency when it comes to how they operate. If you think Primark's prices are too good to be true, it's because they are. But what's worse is the lack of accountability behind those prices. Primark's secrecy about its operations goes beyond just hiding behind the flashy store displays and slick marketing campaigns. They avoid showing customers the real picture of how their clothes are made and where they're made. One of the biggest issues with shopping at Primark is the deliberate opacity around their supply chain. And you're hoping for an honest answer, you might as well be asking a magician to reveal their tricks. The truth is buried beneath layers of confusing, misleading information. You won't find any specifics on their sourcing policies, nor will you see traceability in terms of where the fabrics come from, who makes the clothes, or the conditions under which they're produced. Primark is notorious for shielding their factories from scrutiny. They're far from the only fast fashion retailer to do this, but their level of secrecy is one of the most problematic aspects of their business. When a company hides this much information from its customers, it's clear they don't want us to know what's going on behind the scenes. How do we know this? Well, Primark's transparency report is anything but transparent. It's a nice piece of PR fluff designed to look like they care about labor rights, sustainability, and fair working conditions. But when you peel back the layers, it's a facade. They tell you just enough to appear responsible without offering any concrete evidence or real details. They proudly display a few factory names, but they're only scratching the surface. And who's watching over these factories? The workers are told not to speak out if conditions are bad, and they often don't have the option to leave. They have no voice, no platform to air grievances, and they certainly don't have the protection of labor unions. This lack of accountability means exploitation continues unchecked, and consumers are left in the dark. Psychological manipulation of affordable fashion. All right, let's get real here. Primark knows exactly what they're doing when it comes to their pricing strategy, and it's no accident that you feel so compelled to fill up your cart every time you walk in. Primark has mastered the art of psychological pricing, and it's not just about low numbers. Sure, it feels great to see $7 jeans or a $3 t-shirt, but here's the thing, it's all part of a strategic plan to make you feel like you're getting a deal while they get richer and richer. Let's talk about psychological pricing manipulation. The strategy they use isn't just about selling clothes, it's about selling an idea. The idea that you can buy everything you want without feeling guilty. The power of cheap prices is like a drug, and Primark knows it. The more items you buy, the more they push you to keep going. This sense of urgency is often created by placing items at prices that feel like they're almost too good to pass up. You look at a $5 shirt and think, well, it's so cheap. How could I not get it? It feels like you're winning, but the truth is, you're being manipulated into thinking this is a good deal. That bargain doesn't come with the full cost. Primark is designed to entice you into spending more than you initially intended. You pick up that cute top, then a pair of jeans, and before you know it, you're heading to the counter with a whole shopping bag of stuff you didn't need. The real cost isn't just the price tag, it's the guilt-free feeling they want you to associate with shopping there. The trick they pull, they use low prices to lure you in, and then make you feel good about buying unnecessary items. These little purchases add up, and soon you've spent more than you planned. It's psychological manipulation, plain and simple. It's the classic get you to buy more technique that so many stores use, but Primark does it on a whole new level. And the cherry on top, it's all done with the power of habit. If you walk into Primark regularly and get that instant gratification of snagging a deal, you'll keep going back, unwittingly feeding into a cycle of wasteful consumption. Ethical failures. Why Primark should be boycotted. Now, let's talk about the real cost of shopping at Primark. The one that should make you think twice before buying into that false sense of affordable fashion. Primark's ethical record isn't exactly something to write home about. It's not just about the poor working conditions and environmental disaster. It's about how Primark actively contributes to the system of human exploitation and environmental destruction. This might be a hard pill to swallow, but Primark has been called out repeatedly for its failure to make sustainable choices. Their use of cheap materials like polyester, nylon, and other synthetic synthetic fibers results in clothes that are non-biodegradable and contribute heavily to landfill waste. Polyester doesn't break down in the environment. So, when you throw out that cute Primark dress a year later, it's going to sit there for hundreds of years before it even begins to decompose. And the saddest part? Primark refuses to be held accountable for their role in the fast fashion industry's destruction. They promise sustainability, but they do little to implement it at scale. Primark's sustainability claims often come off as greenwashing. They promise the world, but deliver almost nothing. They know exactly how to advertise their eco-friendly lines, but they've done little to change the systems that perpetuate their toxic cycle. The brand is more focused on profits than actually addressing the root problems of the fashion industry. They keep the prices low by exploiting workers and polluting the planet. And it's high time that we as consumers stop supporting it. When you walk into Primark, you're not just buying cheap clothes, you're buying into a system that profits off exploitation. By continuing to shop there, you're indirectly supporting a brand that chooses profits over people and the planet. Labor exploitation, the true cost of low-wage workers. It's easy to ignore what's happening behind the scenes when you're wearing that cute $5 t-shirt, but the truth is, someone else is paying the price for your bargain. Now, we've already discussed the cheap prices and the environmental toll Primark's business model takes, but there's something even more disturbing: the exploitation of workers. If you've ever wondered how Primark manages to keep prices so low, the answer lies in their workforce. The workers making your clothes are paid next to nothing for their labor, working in sweatshops under harsh conditions. So, while you're scoring deals, these workers are being denied basic human rights. And no, I'm not talking about far-off, abstract labor issues. I'm talking about real people who are struggling to survive while they produce the clothes you buy in bulk without a second thought. Primark outsources much of its manufacturing to countries like Bangladesh, Cambodia, and Pakistan, where the wages are shockingly low. In fact, workers at many of these factories earn as little as $2 to $3 per day, barely enough to survive. To put that into perspective, that's what most of us would spend on a cup of coffee or lunch. These workers are fighting to make ends meet, often working 12 to 14-hour days, sometimes without even the most basic protections. And while Primark boasts about their affordable clothes, what they fail to mention is the suffering these workers go through. Factories are often overcrowded, dangerous, and poorly equipped, leading to a high risk of accidents. Just imagine being a worker in one of these factories. You're working all day, dealing with hazardous equipment, in a facility that doesn't prioritize your health and safety, all for pennies. So next time you grab a cheap item at Primark, ask yourself, who's paying the price? It's the workers in factories who are trapped in a cycle of poverty, abuse, and exploitation just so you can buy a $10 jacket. Primark's lack of labor rights protections is one of the most underreported aspects of their business. These workers have no union representation, no job security, and no legal recourse to fight back. In fact, many workers are threatened with violence if they speak out against conditions in the factory. And that's all just so you can feel good about a cheap purchase. It's a broken system built on injustice. Primark's failure to address these labor issues is shameful, but it